Almost. Major. Holy fucking shit, this is major! Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Almost Major, where we talk about the many major studios and the films they release. And today we are on our 5th episode of our 1980s New Line Cinema miniseries. My name is Kevin Tudor. I'm here with Bryden Doyle.
Hello.
And Charlie Nash.
Hello.
And today we are talking about My Demon Lover from 1987, to the tune of Easy Lover by Philip Bailey and Phil Collins. He's a demon lover. Yeah. Released on April 24th, 1987 in 1,115 theaters at number 10. Budget of $4 million, opening weekend of $1.8 million, and overall gross of $3.9 million. Top 5 films that weekend: The Secret of My Success, Extreme Prejudice, Project X, which I don't think has Pursuit of Happiness by Kid Cudi in it, Blind Date, and Aristocats. I have not seen any of these besides Aristocats.
Yeah, was that
me
like
neither.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Had to have been. Yeah.
Because back then, instead of just putting shit in the vault, they would just be like, you can see it in theaters for like a week or two, and it would be like as if a new Disney movie came out. But yeah.
Yeah, they did that with a lot of those. Black Cauldron was another one.
Yeah.
I remember when I was growing up.
That's the kind of stuff that, like, when you're playing box office game online, that, like, fucks you up, where it'll be like, put up at a Walt Disney Corporation, and you're like, oh, I'm sure I know this, and it's like, no, this movie came out 180 weeks ago. Like,
yeah. I definitely saw The Little Mermaid during a re-release, where even I was confused as a kid. I was like, I mean, I love it, but it's in theaters?
This is for old
Like,
people. What's going on? Extreme Prejudice, Project X, and Blind Date. Without looking it up, I have no idea what those movies are.
Extreme Prejudice is a Nick Nolte, Powers Booth, Walter Hill movie, which I've heard is fantastic. I think we have some friends who really like that one. And Project X is Jonathan Kaplan with who did Unlawful Entry and Truck Turner. That's Matthew Broderick and Helen Hunt. I think it's about like some government project involving chimpanzees. And Blind Date is like a late period Blake Edwards movie with Kim Basinger and Bruce Willis.
Okay.
I think I do know that one.
Yeah. Like you guys, I've only seen Aristocats, and that was like 15 years ago on VHS.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, no, I wouldn't mind seeing some of those other ones. Yeah.
I can't tell you a thing that happens in Aristocats other than there are cats.
And they play music at one point.
They play music.
Yeah, one plays the piano. Yeah.
They get so fucking buck wild that they smash through the floors, and they keep playing music. Them motherfuckers kick ass. Number one songs in the U.S. this week is I Knew You Were Waiting, parentheses for Me, by Aretha Franklin and George Michael. And number one song in Canada this week is Lean on Me by Club Nouveau, Nouveau. It was number one. What do you want? Plot description from Google. Denny, a young woman with bad luck in meeting the right men, more on that later, meets Kaz, a homeless street musician. I don't even think he's that, and thinks she may have found the one. However, more on that later. However, little does she know about a curse that has turned him to a demon when he is aroused. Thanks, Google. Written by Leslie Ray, this is her first writing credit, went on to co-create the Wayans Brothers TV show in the late 90s, wrote a handful of episodes for The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Sister, etc., directed by Charlie Leventhal. Prior to this, wrote the screenplay for an early Brian De Palma film, Home Movies, in 1979. Wrote and directed The First Time in 1981, which I do believe was a New Line movie. And after this, Mr. Right in 1994. Guys, it's spelled W-R-I-T-E. That's funny. And Meat Market in 2004, he also wrote that. Guys, it's spelled M-E-E-T Market. That's also funny. Starring Scott Valentine as Kaz. And what's the over-under on this guy getting hired just because his last name is Valentine?
They talked about that on the special features, how they were like looking for people. And I think it was like the director, Charlie Leventhal, said that like it was his daughter or someone like saw Valentine on the cover of like Tiger Beat or some magazine and said like, hire this guy, he's handsome or something. And then that was basically it. And yeah.
Which is the same way that Johnny Depp got hired in Nightmare on Elm Street. Wes Craven's daughter was just like, he's cute as far as headshots when they were doing people, so that's funny.
Jeez.
Let's have him get eaten by a bed. That'll be fun.
Scene kicks ass.
Oh, it's great.
How can you tell what they're talking about? Who cares? Prior to this, True Stories in 1986. After this, 41 episodes of Family Ties, 2 episodes of Batman the Animated Series. Michelle Little as Denny, gonna be honest, is basically this, a small role in Apollo 13 in 1995 and an episode of The Facts of Life.
And Out of the Blue, she, although I don't remember her in Out of the Blue
was in her
at all.
profile. I haven't seen
Really?
it yet, but yeah.
Shit.
She's credited as like Girl in Van or something.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, we all remember. That's what we all remember about Out of the Blue, not the absolutely devastating way that movie ends, and still haunts me.
You're talking about the Neil LaBute movie from last year, right? No,
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Both that movie and this movie revolve around dynamite. So, Robert Tremore as Charles, prior to this, also in The First Time in 1981, 52 Pickup in 1986, and Making Mr. Right in 1987. And I'll watch that as Susan Sotoman research before we talk about Smithereens. After this, Talk Radio in 1988, 22 episodes of Hercules: The Legendary Journeys. I don't like that subtitle. I don't like that. The Legendary Journeys. From 1995 to 1999. And he played Marty Walker, the film critic guy in The Devil's Rejects in 2005, and listen to our episode on that. Very funny that's the guy.
Yeah, I didn't know that until one of you mentioned it in our chat.
Gina Gallego as Sonia. After this, a episode of Freddy's Nightmares in 1990. When she popped on screen, I clocked her as one of Jerry's girlfriends in Seinfeld in season 3, who has a boyfriend in a coma and is telling Jerry, a man is lying here unconscious and you're afraid of him. What kind of man are you? And he says, I'm a man who respects a good coma. That's very funny. Aaron Brockovich in 2000, and Minority Report and Mr. Deeds in 2002.
Wait, who were they in Minority Report?
It was like reporter, so yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Woman reporter with face. And you're just like, oh, that's right.
With face.
Yeah.
That makes me think. My mom has told stories about how she had a teacher who would go by you, the one with the hair, and it was very confusing. It was like, well, we all have hair, so well.
Unless you were in class with the guy from the Flock of Seagulls, you can't really say that.
Or Scott Valentine in this movie when he turns into a demon.
Yeah, that motherfucker got some
I don't
hair.
know, he doesn't have hair all the time when he's a demon, but...
Yeah, you'd be like, the guy with the hair... Oh, sorry, you're in the wrong... Yeah, my bad. Trivia. They originally wanted Jay Leno for the role of Kaz, which would make me hate this movie even more, and originally wanted Meg Ryan for the role of Denny, and that's all the trivia I could find, and that's from the special features. So if I didn't get the Blu-ray, boy howdy, we would have had nothing.
I'm sorry. You gotta make some changes. You lie on the floor, people are going to wipe their feet on you.
New York City. It's a jungle.
I'm affectionate.
Bonsoir and good evening, ladies.
And all Denny wanted was someone to
The
love.
strays, they see you coming miles away. Dogs, alley cats, actors.
Then, she met her perfect mate.
You are attracted to scum.
You got the curse all over you, boy.
It's sex. I can't do it, think about it, or even look at it. I turned into a monster.
But what brings out the best in her brings out the beast in him. Falling in love can be very scary. My Demon Lover, starring Scott Valentine.
Initial thoughts on My Demon Lover. Let's see, I will get my notes, my train of thought notes, and then about 30 minutes in, I was just wanting to die, so I didn't really take too much notes. This woman is too much of an I can fix him after her boyfriend robs her entire place. That's just okay. I just said in all caps, this movie hates women. The Romanian curse, we're going to talk about that a lot. Yeah, I was saying that her hitting him when he turns into a woman and his head just explodes into this gooey yellowness, and then it turns into whenever the head comes off in the thing where all these tentacles are coming out. I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. I don't understand how we got to a castle, and that's pretty much all the notes I have. Oh, wait. Still a better movie than Demon Lover from 2002. Okay, that's all I got.
What the fuck is the matter with you? I'm logging
I need to
off.
see that one. I've just seen the clips where it's
so
Chloe
fucking
Sevigny playing
good.
PS2 or whatever on her bed.
Yep, movie's amazing.
Who's up next?
Gina Gershon shows up as the fucking like rival CEO of that company with a t-shirt that says I Heart Gossip on it. Asking Chloe 70 where they can get weed. It's an espionage thriller about hentai. It rules.
You want to talk about
Kevin's
My Demon
just-
Lover? You want to do it?
I'd rather talk about that one. The other one that Sayus directed that's
I'll find out Demon Lover in the US. I wonder if it's a mini major that we could cover. I'll look it up later.
I'll be sick that week. I'll be
I
playing
doubt it's
PS.
worse than any of the movies we've talked about on this
Jesus
podcast.
Christ. Kevin, even if we're going into like the more like Sonic Youth did the score for that movie, man. Like,
Yeah, but that was in like the 2000s. Who cares about Sonic Youth in the 2000s? Okay.
ooh, ouch.
Remember the Juno
like
where
Sonic.
it's like, I listened
like
to that
Sonic
Sonic
Youth.
Youth album. It was just noise.
He gave her like good Sonic Youth too.
What did he give her? Daydream Nation and like Goo or
Yeah.
something?
What's wrong with you, man? She was like, too bad. I want like, there's not enough acoustic guitars on this. That soundtrack kind of ages like milk. What a time.
Yeah, that for them to shit on Sonic Youth where like the soundtrack of that movie is all like
Singer-songwriters and twee bullshit.
Singer-songwriters that have been kind of forgotten by time, with the exception of like Belle and Sebastian and stuff.
I do like
anyway.
I do like the cover that Elliot Page and Michael Cera do at the end where they're singing on the guitar to each other.
Yeah,
it's
it's not
also
bad.
like emotionally sweet where the movie's gone at that point. So it's like it hits a little. It's different.
Yeah.
But
No, I liked that movie a lot as a teenager, and I'm absolutely mortified to revisit it because I'm worried I'll hate it. But,
Listen,
revisit it when Ghostbusters 4 or whatever the fuck comes out.
Isn't it called like Ghostbusters Frozen or like The Ice Coast or some dumb shit?
what?
I don't know.
It is. Hang on. This is important.
Yeah.
Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
Empire?
What the fuck does that even?
It's not even directing
What?
it. What the fuck? He co-wrote it. It's the guy who did Monster House and the Poltergeist remake who's doing it. Okay. Wow.
The Poltergeist remake? Jesus, you just reminded me that there's a Poltergeist
Yeah,
remake.
and I have
keep
to watch
blocking
it.
that out.
Oh, brother.
Oh, I did watch it. I can't tell you anything about it. Like, I genuinely... I sat in the theater and I digested it, and it's just gone. It's just
Sam Rockwell
it's
is in
just-
that. So weird.
I remember
Yeah.
when I was in high school. I'm sorry I'm going on so many tangents here, but I remember when I was in high school, there was
We need to talk about something this episode, so...
There was a
Yeah.
YouTube channel. I'll make this really quick. There was a YouTube channel called Movie Bitches, I think, where they did like top 10 lowest rated movies of Rotten Tomatoes. But what they would do is they would have like 5-second clips from movies, like basically acting as like unintentional critiques of the movie. And the Poltergeist clip was like Sam Rockwell going like, don't do that. Why do you want to do that? And I just thought that was funny, but very stupid.
I
Anyways.
will unfortunately watch that garbage. I do remember the promotional material was just like, there's a clown doll in this movie. And I'm like, that's all you got? Okay.
Yeah,
Isn't there
so...
one in the original? I mean, I feel like I've seen the clip.
Yeah.
like,
There
the kid
is,
looking at
but
the
I
bed,
mean,
right?
like, the original has
can't
like
even-
her looking at the TV and all this great art, and they're just like close up of a clown doll. Come see our movie,
Remember in-
bitches.
Remember in the original where the guy ripped his own face off?
kicked
and
ass.
got away with a PG rating?
kicked
Yeah,
ass.
good shit.
You guys want to talk about Poltergeist? I just got the 4K. It's pretty badass.
It's a good
I
movie.
need to see it. Unfortunately, the remake is the one that's streaming in Canada, but not the original. Which
That'd be
feels
funny
fucked
if
up.
like Poltergeist 3 was streaming, but just not the original.
You
I've
know
heard
what?
this-
Probably one of those is available on
I've heard
Tubi.
the second one is like not too bad, and then the third one is just like, what are you doing at this point? The third one takes place in like a high rise, and I think Sharon Stone is there or some shit. I don't know.
Oh wow!
I haven't seen the sequels. I just know that franchise is
Cursed.
legitimately cursed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the little girl died and like before the third one came out, right? Of some rare like heart disease or something.
Well, yeah,
Like,
and then the teenage daughter got like murdered by her boyfriend.
yeah, that was after the first one,
Yeah,
I think.
Dominic Dunn, I believe her name was. Anyways, My Demon Lover.
I know. I'm sorry I took us on this tangent.
No.
It's like
No,
I was-
in our defense, this
we
movie's
need
bad.
we need something to talk about other than this movie, because what were we gonna say other than what is this? What were y'all
It's-
doing?
I can maybe try to
barely
spit
a
some hot
movie.
fire.
It's rarely a movie. It's just I don't even know what this thing's trying to do. Is it supposed to be like a goofy sitcom about how these two people are just like yeah, you said this movie hates women, Kevin. I mean, Jesus Christ. The movie starts with her ex-boyfriend running away with the TV and not even saying that he's dumping her, and then it's her being like, oh, I'm just doomed to be...
It's my fault because I wanted to have a birthday party.
For myself.
I wanted to have a birthday party, and then the meet cute... Here's the thing, is like, even if it's getting... it's like, it's not even funny. I don't even know what it's aiming for, but he is homeless and steals her burger, and like... Then he's disgusted by the fact that it's like made of beets or something, or fruit burger. He keeps calling her fruit burger as a result of that, and then spits it on her dress. And then she's like explaining, "I will tell you exactly what this is," and points to her dress, and we get these disgusting like like bits of spew just close up on her dress, being like, "And there were like this and that." And I'm just like, and then she lets him spend the night at his house, and like it's all done in this. None of it is being taken seriously, but none of this, like, I'm just like, what is this? Like, I don't even know what this is. Like,
after he's like straight up just like has been harassing her sexually like all day, and she's just like, oh yeah, well, it's okay.
Well, she tries to, like, at one point he's like getting turned on, and that's why he can't move. And then at one point she's like, I need to like carry you, and he's like, oh, maybe you should get your big boyfriend you talked about. And she's like, I don't have a big boyfriend. That was a lie. And he's like, great, we can get married. And just like kisses her on the lips. And it's just like, what are we doing here? Like, this is not good. Like, even in a dumb 80s horror comedy, I don't even get what the likability is supposed to be. This movie has no, it's not, if it's a dark satire, it's got no bite. If it's a lighthearted comedy, these people are the worst, especially all the men, but because the movie sides with them. Like, the jokes seem to be coming from the perspective of you're laughing along with these people, which it just kind of washed over me. I was mentioning this to you, but like I just had a hard time paying attention to this, and even when it got like ridiculous, where they just end up at a fucking castle at one point, as you mentioned, Kevin, I was just like, whatever. Yeah. Like, okay.
It washed over you like a radioactive man being like, the goggles, they do nothing.
It kind of is like when you're wearing drunk goggles in PE when you're like in middle school, and they're like, this is what it feels like to be intoxicated. You're just kind of like,
which is a lie.
What am I looking at?
It's totally a lie.
Yeah. Oh no. That's like,
you don't get drunk and then just become blind. Like, come on.
That sounds like an urban legend they would tell you, like, to, like, it's sort of like one of the urban legends, like, if you masturbate, you'll go blind. If you drink, you'll go blind. It's like,
if you masturbate, you go blind. Meanwhile, Billy Joe Armstrong was just like, say a word. Charlie, is that all your initial thoughts?
I mean, yeah, like, what? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Where is the appeal of any of this thing? Even the intro, I was like, okay, there's this cute little cartoon devil thing, and then it just cuts to people walking on the sidewalk in, I don't know what city they're in. I don't remember.
New York, baby.
Like, it's New York.
You see them walking under the bridge at one point in the bouncy pop montage when they're.
Well, it had that animated thing, and I was like, oh, neat. It's gonna have a cute little all right.
Nope, that's gone. All right. Yeah. And, oh god, one of the worst car chases ever filmed, probably. I don't even know. Because that's the thing, it's like, you don't want to get into, like, why are these people acting this way? Because it's clearly in make-believe land, and everything's far-fetched and outrageous and silly, so it doesn't matter. But at the same time, it's like, it's just not funny, you know? It's just like every line feels like improv, but in a bad way. Or they were just kind of like, oh yeah, it was our first take. I was just kind of, and they were like, no, that's great. We'll keep that in there. And it's like, but that's barely a joke. That's like
just one take in it, just like Clint Eastwood directing this movie. But like, really, that's the one take we're gonna do?
This is not. Clint Eastwood made some good movies. I don't know.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying he's known for just being like, really, we're just gonna keep going. I wanted to do another one. He's like, that's okay. We got it.
When you're ready. That's what he says, I think, instead of action.
Yeah, when you're ready.
And then instead of cut, he's like, well, all right then.
It really does, yeah, but it does feel like the director just shows up on set. We're like, is there a camera? Are there lights? Good, we're good to go.
Actually, there's not. You said there was. Let's go. Yeah, allegedly the director in the special features was basically saying, like, he doesn't know shit about, like, horror movies or anything like that, and was just like, I'm here for the rom-com of it all. You could definitely tell when it starts to just be, like, practical effects and shit was when it's actually cooking, just because it's a completely different movie, it feels like.
Yeah, do you want me to talk a little bit about that in the special features?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing I watched was actually, it was an interview with David Newman, who's but he's related to Thomas Newman, who is an incredible composer. You know, did like the Road to Perdition score, Less Than Zero score, very, very good composer. And also his cousin is Randy Newman. And then like he says that, like, you know, who probably everybody knows, a great singer-songwriter. And his dad, Alfred Newman, was like, you know, a Hollywood person who came to Hollywood.
I've never heard of
30s.
him. I don't know who you're talking about.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sounds like you don't have a friend in him. Sorry.
Jesus.
This is my third movie in a movie theater, you dick.
But he talked about how at this point, you know, he was like working on like industrial films, and like, you know, he was like doing stuff for like, you know, 1987. I think, like he said, he did the score for this Burt Reynolds movie Malone, Throw Mama from the Train, the Danny DeVito movie, and then he talked about, oh, he also did the score for Critters, which we'll talk about later on in our miniseries. What's up, Kevin?
I'm sorry. Anytime I hear Throw Mama from the Train, there's a Tom Green bit where he used to just go on the street and just be like, oh my god, I can't believe it, like, Drew Barrymore's here, to like a random person in Canada. But he did this and it was a couple, and he's like, I can't believe this, it's David Koresh and Throw Mama from the Train. Kills me every time.
But yeah, and then he talks about sort of the tonal confusion that was happening in the movie, where it sounds like this movie was just maybe like fucked from the start and everything, where Neiman says, it was really a romantic comedy at heart, a little bit of a confusing genre. One of the difficult things about it, the tone was kind of hard to gauge. Was it supposed to get really dark? Did it get too dark? If it got too dark, should the music make it less dark? And he says, it's harder to do a funny, light rom-com horror. I didn't really have the resources to do what I would have wanted to do, and he talks about how he doesn't think the score is aged especially well, and then he says, like, I think he wraps up the interview. It's the most anticlimactic end to the special feature where you're like, it's so fast and I was so busy with other stuff. Then it shows the clip from the movie where it's the cop going, just another day in the big city. Meta credits roll. And the special feature. It's just like, wow, it's just like you do not think very highly of this movie. I mean, fair. And then, yeah, you're talking about how, like, Leventhal was like brought in because like he was like viewed as like being good with actors on his first movie. What was it called again? The First Time? I haven't seen that one. Maybe it's good. But then how like it felt like, it sounds like maybe there was like the horror stuff was kind of left up to like the makeup effects people. That sounds like that's kind of the vibe you get from like a lot of this talk here. He says that people might have been confused at the time by what it was, and he says, I don't know that we were ever really able to initially make it known what it was. But then you have like, and it's like one of those things where
they were like, we didn't know what we were doing.
I know, it's like really the most like thinking where it's like you're really not helping your case here, even though like they keep saying we had so much fun, everyone was so nice and everything, we were laughing while making this movie and everything, we could barely keep it together, and it's like, oh, okay, sure, and then good for you, and then but then like you have them also, and look, maybe this is proven by the fact that this movie has special features, you know, years later where people are talking about it and doing retrospectives. Maybe this movie has some cultural impact because they're talking about like Robert Trevor says, it's been burnished by people who saw it at the time when they were adolescents, and I'm just like, okay, maybe that's true. I don't know. I mean, we are getting the special edition or whatever with these retrospectives, but I don't know. We're talking now about how, if I may get into my initial thoughts. So we'll talk about next week 976 Evil, which we're preparing up because it's sort of like supernatural horror films or movies with a horror bent that deal with like supernatural presences and demons and whatnot. It at least has like here's some positives. I agree with Kevin that the creature design is very impressive. That whole scene where it's Scott Valentine like shifting different bodily forms and like his head like, you know, was like stuck inside like the neck hole, and then he yanks it out and everything, you see it like pop up into a new face, and the bit where like he's punched, it's the old woman
he turns into Jim Carrey from Dumb and Dumber for a few seconds.
Yeah. This feels like, you know, we have Jim Carrey at home, although Jim Carrey was not famous at the time, so, you know, I can't really say that. But then when he gets like punched in the face and like his face like cracks like an eggshell and like all the yellow goo spurts out and everything, and it is like, you know, like an egg. It's like, it looks like egg yolk. That's like really neat. Like Kevin said in our group chat, I wish that like it was used in a better movie, because the rest of it like they said, it's not really like embracing. It feels like it kind of changes tone like from scene to scene. Like the scene on the subway when like they're passing, it's like you see the girl like waiting on the platform and the train passes, and then like you see her just sort of slumped against the side of like a post and everything, and then like you get like just a shot like partially of like her cheek and everything, and it's all bloody and she falls over, and the music is kind of like scary sounding. I'm like thinking, oh, that's like a reasonably eerie shots and everything, and like sort of brief sequence and everything. But then it's like, you know, fucking Scott Valentine like harassing women on the street, and it's like meant to be like he's like, you know, it's so funny that he's like so horny and like can't contain himself and everything. I mean, basically we're talking about like
also bothering people on the subway with a saxophone that he somehow just loses after that opening scene, which I was fine with. But
yeah, I mean, well, you hear it on the soundtrack. I mean, every time like their kiss is like yeah, it's weird that the movie, the two like possible love interests are this fucking dork Chuck, who like is just like, you know, can barely hold his drink straight and is like, you know, always calling for dates and getting shot down. Turns out he's a fucking murderer. And then the other guy, and then there's...
who lives in a castle.
Yes, and then there's...
lives in a castle, and no one can find this fucking killer. Not that it matters, because we're in sitcom land, but like...
Yeah, and then Scott Valentine's character is like, you know, a serial harasser, but like, you know, he's possessed by a demon and everything. And it's like the thing where it's like, she's into him at the end. It's like, they're both bad. Like the only thing that separates them is that like
awful.
He's a serial harasser, but he's not a murdering serial harasser like Chuck or whatever. You know, it's like, or is it Chuck? That's his name, right? It's Chuck.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where it's like, well, they're both terrible. I mean, and it's also weird too, the reason for him getting cursed as a kid. Like you see like flashbacks where he's like, you know, making out with some girl at a party, and then her grandma comes in and curses him. And it's like saying, so she seems to be upset that he's having sex, but then she's going to curse him with something that's going to make him into a sexual predator. That doesn't make, like, I get, they said like it's like like a combination of like blue balls and horniness or whatever, but I'm like thinking like, well, like this is like, just seems like a counterproductive curse and everything. Sorry if I'm making light of all this. In the movie's defense, the movie does it too.
I mean,
this is a very serious part in this film, right?
But it's also, that's just it's not even like, that's such an easy, it's like low-hanging fruit for the horror genre to be like, I get turned into a monster when I get sexually aroused. Like, that's like, in terms of like analyzing horror and gender and stuff like that, like that's the easiest fucking thing to do. And they don't even know what they're talking about while they're doing it.
And,
you know, like...
And when he turns into demonic form early on in the movie, it's when he's rescuing her from like her shitty boyfriend who's like stealing all her stuff and everything. And he's like, you know, carrying her gently into like the house and everything. So I'm thinking like, so the movie doesn't even seem aware of its own rules or anything of like what this guy's like control or like what his personality changes are like. It doesn't. Yeah.
Listen, I might be a sexual harasser, but at least I'm not stealing from you.
Gosh.
But that's kind of the thing. That's why this movie depressed me so much. Is like you can't even like. It doesn't have any rules. It doesn't really have any, you know, thematic coherence. It doesn't have any ideas. It's just like any criticism you can throw at it. It's just like, well, this movie isn't about anything. So like, why even like, it's just nothing. It's just a big bunch of nothing, you know, like you can't even attack it for being one thing because it doesn't know or care about being anything at all. So it just made me feel like just completely nihilistic. You know?
I want to be clear. I hope I'm not sounding too glib about this movie. I think this is also probably coming out in the era where like a lot of movies are really being maybe not so like where sort of creepiness in like romantic comedy scenarios is like kind of a more common thing than it is now. Like maybe they were not as keyed up into this and everything, but it really does like have like a more sour taste when like it is put in this comedic bed, especially where like it's like you said, it's not really interrogating it. It's like, you know, having like all these bouncy pop music montages of like, you know, where its characters just like doing like, you know, typical childish like goofy things together to show that they're falling in love, like running through the street with balloons and whatnot, and walking and talking backwards and stuff. It's yeah, none of the performances really work, I don't think at all. It all seems like they're really like kind of just like a lot of it is just like sort of shouting their lines. And like I said, comparing it to 976 Evil, like at least there's like scenes where that feel like they have a beginning and middle and end, rather than like 976 Evil, where like there's like the scenes either drag on forever or end way too quickly. But the scenes in this movie, but it's like also a thing of like the scenes are fucking terribly written and acted, and like not even like especially well cut together. Like there's a bit where like the female lead of the movie, Michelle Little, is like standing up and everything, and it's like for no reason the scene like cuts like to a different shot or whatever as she's like saying the second half of a sentence or whatever, and it's just like why use that choice? It doesn't make sense.
It's nothing. It's just a big old
what do you want from me,
like,
movie?
I mean, like, even stuff like, I know we've, Chelsea Walls, we've, like, kicked the crap out of on this podcast, but I at least know what it's trying to do. This is just, like, nobody who made it is interested. They're all in it for a paycheck.
It's funny you say that they were all in it for a paycheck. Charlie, the director, is it Charlie Lowenthal was the name of the director? I think that's his name. Yeah, he said like, well, the script, I just like fell in love with it. And then like the guy who plays Chuck, Robert Trevor,
he was like, the script kind of sucks.
Well, like he's like, it was okay. It's just like, oh,
he said it's like, no 52 pickup, which
that's right. I mean, I do need to see that movie because Frankenheimer and whatnot. But
yeah, I need to see that one too.
Yeah, no, it's unfortunately not especially good. Do we want to go through the plot? I mean, I feel like I did take notes while watching this movie, and I hope I'm not running over anyone in terms of what to talk about. I know we're all
I have nothing to talk about, so yeah, let's go through your notes.
Yeah, me neither.
Okay, so the movie starts. Michelle Little is walking through the street shopping, and she's such a doormat that when she lets even dogs steal her groceries. And then her boyfriend he's such a mean person that he steals her stuff and then knocks her down the stairs and laughs in her face at accidentally knocking her down the stairs. Real bastard. And then she's going to she hangs out with her friend Sonia, who's played by
Gina Gelago.
Yeah. I'll just to make it simple, I'll say the character names because then it sounds less confusing. They're hanging out at a bar. And it seems like there's a guy who they've run into before named Chuck, who's like this real nerdy guy who's like a high school teacher from Philadelphia, and he like is like trying to like hit Denny is the main character's name. He tries to hit her up for a date, and she's kind of like giving him the brush off and everything, even though she does think he is like kind of a nice, if not very nerdy guy. Meanwhile, there's a bunch of murders going around, and there's a name has already been attached to the killer, the Mangler, which the cops are mad about. They're like, I don't want like copycats like coming in here and like and imitating this guy, the Mangler, if there's a name to him. And,
isn't there a Robert Englund movie called The Mangler?
Is that directed by Tobe Hooper?
Yeah.
I think
I was gonna watch it for 976 Evil Research, but I just watched the sequel instead.
Sure. Well, has an astral factor. Around this time that you hear about this, you meet Kaz, who is a guy who wears a very dirty red jacket and plays the saxophone on the subway.
Yeah.
This is another weird thing where it's like, what's this movie's view of the character? In the special features, they talk about how like charismatic Scott Valentine was as this character, and they say that over footage of the scene where he menacingly approaches a woman while his eyes turn red on the subway. So that's a weird scene to talk about him being a charismatic character. But so people start turning up dead in the subway and around the city, and there's eventually though Denny and Kaz meet when she goes to a restaurant where one of the patrons dies just out of nowhere, and Lin Shaye's like yelling on the phone. Kaz like jumps out from a pile of trash and takes her burger, and he spits it out when he finds out it's a fruit burger. But then he just like keeps following her. She doesn't seem very into it. And then when she comes home, she's attacked by her ex-boyfriend, I should say, because he thinks that she ratted her out to the cost for stealing her stuff. She didn't do it though because he ripped out her phone from the wall when he was leaving the apartment and trashing it. Kaz turns into a demon around this point and scares Chip away and carries her in and carries Denny inside, and they become friends. They start hanging out, and Sunny pop music set montages, and she wants to make it a physical romantic relationship, and he's resistant because he's afraid that if he gets too excited, he'll hurt her. And they sort of go back and forth on that for a bit, and then there's a scene where they do, try to consummate the relationship on the bed, and he loses all his hair, and he spreads a bunch of bumps on his back, and scares the shit out of her.
Well, also around this time, he may have been one or two times, like, as soon as he goes to sleep, he sneaks out in the middle of the night.
Yeah, he kind of, like, goes wild and runs away, and he thinks that maybe he's doing something when he blacks out, because he says he blacks out. And also around this time, Sonia's sister has been attacked. She owns, like, some sort of antique shop with, like, a bunch of, like, old weapons in there, and she gets attacked, and Sonia somehow has the ability to see a vision of the killer. She sees what her sister sees. They kind of just write that off in the movie.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And she starts thinking that maybe... Well, she starts thinking that that Cass is the killer when she runs into him at a bar, and he, like, makes, like, a really... Like, he immediately turns into creep mode and everything. It says, like, he says, like, "Tits, nice to meet you," and everything, and, tries to hit on her right in front of Denny, who gets very upset and calls him disgusting, rightly so. Sonia, thinking that he's the killer, the mangler, she teams up with Chuck and, like, gets, like, a special blade made of flint, which is, like, some sort of material that will kill. I'm jumping all over the place. I mentioned this earlier.
The movie does too.
I mean,
my initial thoughts.
You didn't mention that they got the flint from Michael Moore either. You didn't mention that.
Okay. So I forgot to mention this. Kaz, when he was a teenager, he reveals as part of his backstory that when he was at a party, he was making out with some girl on the couch, and then her grandmother came in and then put a curse on him. It's, like, not possession, but, like, pizzazzed or something like that. She says, like, it's, like, some specific word for it. And it's basically, like, he can't, like, properly have sex and everything. Like, he's either, like, a mad sex fiend or, like, he can't, like, and, like, if he gets too excited, he'll turn into a demonic form, and, that doesn't usually work out well for relationships, for demons.
It's never worked out for me. Yeah, it sucks.
And at the start of the movie, when he's, like, walking along the street harassing people, he runs into a guy who's selling elixirs, and the guy maybe hints that there's, like, he tells him that, like, the cure to the curse is, like, getting stabbed with some sort of knife made of flint, and, like, that will kill the demon, but it will also pass the demon on to, like, the person closest to him. I also want to say about this elixir salesman. He is played by Arnold
Johnson.
Yeah, who was also the grandfather who's quoting scripture a bunch in Menace to Society by the Hughes brothers. So that was kind of cool to find out.
He's the lead of Putney Swoop, the Robert Downey Sr. movie.
Which I need to see. I will also say, he's not a very good elixir salesman. Like, the moment that, like, Kaz comes by and he asks, like, "Do you have any money?" and Kaz says no, he just immediately folds up his shop and everything. I'm thinking, like, one customer doesn't have money and you just, like, fold up shop? Doesn't seem like you have much heart for this, but much later in the movie, Sonia's with Chuck. She gets the blade with flint in it, and she calls Denny at her apartment saying, "Hey, I'm being attacked by the mangler, you need to come help me," and everything. And this is around the time that Cass is going through all the various demonic transformations, and his head explodes and turns into, like, a bunch of soot. There's a weird shot where Denny, even though she's going to help her friend, there's a shot where she's, like, clearly cleaned up her face with all the soot, and, like, she's, like, brushing her hair. I'm thinking, I feel like that's not the most important thing for rushing out to help your friend who's in danger, but whatever. Sonia gets inside. Sonia gets inside and is trying to fight Kaz, but then outside, Denny runs into Chuck, who then chloroforms her and pulls out a hand that is all deformed, and he reveals that he is the mangler. He is a demonic killer as well. And there's a big car chase that, look, in the grand scheme of the movie, it's not the least bit exciting, but it is at least reasonably well directed, and it looks like there are actual people hanging off the cars, and you can see shots that are held for a long amount of time where you can see people hanging off the car, and it's like, it is technically competent, but it is, like, scored with, like, a very bland sort of up-tempo synthy 80s score, and, like, the hijinks are, and, like, all the, like, the quips that are being fired off are, like, really lousy. Like,
what's better, the car chase in this or Relentless?
Oh, the car chase in Relentless is fun, kind of. Yeah.
I feel like I could say anything in comparison to this movie and Relentless would win.
Yeah, because Relentless is a real movie.
It's true.
This is just...
And then the car crashes. It's funny, they're being chased by a cop who has, like, arrested the elixir salesman, and the cop, like, chases them for a bit, but then he, like, crashes into, like, like, one set of, like, wooden barriers that's, like, not even, like, that thick, but then, like, his car just, like, spins out of control and he's apparently out of commission. They crash into the water, and this leads to maybe one of the only mildly amusing jokes in the movie where they're like saying, well, where could they be? You know, where's Chuck and Denny? Then it cuts to like a wide shot of like just this giant fucking castle in the background. There's like a loud like sort of music sting, and I'm like, oh, okay, like that's kind of funny. Just like this very plainly ominous thing that is like lying in plain sight. I was like, okay, sure, why not?
I will say that I think this movie and 976 Evil kind of end the exact same way.
Well, there's also like
where it's like a massive set piece and things are falling and there's peril and anybody could fall in and die immediately and that type of thing.
Well, there's even the creature design is kind of similar where you see like, you know, Chuck, like he's like, you know, when he's in his demonic form, you know, he's wearing a suit before he's wearing a suit, but then like he's wearing his shoes and like his like sharp toenails are like breaking through the shoes, and there's like similar stuff like that with the Stephen Jeffries demon in 976 Evil, which is just kind of interesting to notice that if you want. Interesting is a word that I could think of. In order to get, and also speaking about how shitty this movie is about women, Denny is just like a total damsel in distress in this scenario. She's not really given any kind of control over her own agency, her own fate in this movie. As she's just sort of torn between these two shitty guys, one of whom the movie thinks is not so shitty. In order to get up there, Kaz has sex with Sonia because when he gets in one of his demonic forms in which he gets aroused, he sprouts wings. And then, so after he has sex, he's like smoking a cigarette, classic, you know, after sex move. He flies up. Why did I say it like that? That's so stupid.
I mean, it is.
I mean, that's what happens. That's genuinely what happens.
There's a band called
Cigarettes After Sex. That's how I know that. No, I'm
joking. I said out loud, I said, I swear to God, if he says, was it as good for you as it was for me, I'm turning this movie off. But at least we didn't get to that, I guess. Yeah.
So he flies up to the top of the castle, and there's like a big fight, and there's like a sharpshooter brought in who doesn't really give the most reassuring answers to the police. The police say like, will you be able to like, you know, get a shot without like any casualties? And the sharpshooter says like, I can't guarantee that. And we're like, okay, well, and then he just goes off. Chuck turns into his full demonic form where he has like horns on his head. There's like a big struggle. Yeah, basically like Kaz stabs him in the stomach, and he explodes. Everything's fine. Everyone has like kind of a nonplussed reaction, and they all just kind of go home. Kaz realizes that like, you know, oh wait, I forgot about the other part of the curse where like, you know, if like using the blade, like the demon will get passed on to the person closest to me. What does that mean? And then it cuts to the elixir salesman. His eyes turn red, and he chases after a cop after making a lewd comment.
Because that's funny.
Yeah,
it's hilarious.
And then the same fucking one of the same 80s songs that is played throughout the movie blasts as Kaz and Denny go home and kiss, and then the movie ends with like, you know, kind of like Con Air style where it's like the movie, or Predator style rather, where it's like showing like the cast smiling and freeze framing while their names appear in front of them. Yeah.
What a lazy curse to just be like, not like the last person you ever contacted with or anything. It's just like, yeah, it'll pass to like, I don't know, whoever's next to you or something.
Yeah,
this is one of the worst movies we've ever covered. I would rather watch House of the Dead 3 more times than ever sit through this again.
I would disagree, but okay. You're entitled to your opinion.
This movie, it's like, it's worse than something that is actually like bad at what it's seeking out to do passionately. It's just nothing. Like it's like Dada, but not self-aware. You know, like it's just
can't spell demon lover.
Special features.
Yeah, can't spell demon lover without Dada.
I hated this movie so much. I don't. It takes a lot for me to just be like, I surrender to your bullshit. Please put me out of my mercy. Like because anything I say, it's like, doesn't matter. There's nothing here. There's no thesis. There's nothing. Like how can you do that? Well, the movie doesn't care. I don't care. Whatever. Like it's not funny. It's just
anything else, or do we are we gonna go to a payphone and get our horoscope?
Well, that movie's at least about something.
But it's like it's so bad. I mean, we'll talk about it. But I will say
it's about it badly. But good lord, is it at least like, I couldn't believe how hard it was for me to pay attention to 976 Evil, but it was even worse with this. Like,
I mean, it's a real case of no matter who wins, we lose. I mean, I mentioned.
I think there's
My
a clear
Demon
winner
Lover
here.
versus
I think there is
976
a-
Evil. Whoever
I
wins.
think 976 Evil at least lays out what the movie's trying to do in the opening half hour. This doesn't even have. There's no what. This doesn't even have an opening. It's just shit happens.
I would say I would say 976 Evil lays out what it's doing in the first 40 minutes of a 92-minute movie. It's at that point that they reveal this is what the movie's actually about. But anyway.
It just made me want to. If anything, this movie just made me want to rewatch Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Because I'm just like, I'm
in what way?
Like, just because that's a show, that's brilliant. We can do and say anything. We're not really about anything, but it's so brilliant. This is just the worst type of. I'm not even trying to say they're aiming for the same thing. They're not. They're two completely different things. But it's just like.
What if they were though? What if you asked Aqua Teen Hunger Force? It's like I'm getting a lot of My Demon Lover vibes here. It's like holy fucking shit, you picked it up perfectly. First one.
It's. Because I it's just that type of thing where people can be like, what is this even about? I'm like, who cares? They can do and say anything and it's brilliant and the animation's beautiful and it doesn't matter. It's just funny. This is just let's give a bunch of people money to make a movie. Hopefully that movie will make money. Who's gonna see it? Teenagers? I don't know. It's it just feels so such busy work for everything.
Yeah.
You got people who aren't even passionate about horror or comedy or anything. It's just there.
There's a big difference between you can do anything and that makes it limitless, like something on Aqua Teen Hunger Force where it's just like, what does this even mean? Who cares? It's funny. Where it's just like this one, it's just like, I don't know, we can try this. That didn't work. Well, if we just keep trying things, maybe one thing will stick. And it's like, no, not really.
Yeah, like you mentioned the switching head scene. It's just like, I didn't even care. I gave up. I was like, okay, the makeup's cool. I don't even care about what the rules are. There are no rules. This movie has no rules. It's just there. They don't care. Did they make the money back? That's all they cared about. I don't know.
I mean, when you said it's like this thing, I'm thinking man, don't make me think about a better movie. I'd rather be watching.
Well, that's the movie's fault. That's the movie's fault. They ripped that off.
My Demon Lover and The Lodge both reminded me that I should just be watching The Thing. Yeah.
Oh, don't make me. I don't want to watch The Lodge. Oh God.
Should we just end this before Charlie dies? It's barely about something. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Almost Major. Please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Please follow the pod on Twitter at Almost Major to keep up to date with what movies we will be covering in the future. Myself, I can be found on Twitter and Letterboxd at KevBonesy. Bryden can be found on Twitter at Bryden Doyle and on Letterboxd at JDoyle. Charlie can be found on Twitter and Letterboxd at CTNash91. Once again, thank you for listening.